David Shepard, and I'll be your guide as we explore the making of The Birth of a Nation. "1915 marked the 50th anniversary of the close of the Civil War, celebrated by numerous pageants and parades. The legends of the Old South and the Civil War were by then permanent fixtures in American popular culture. These legends became a vital part of the reconciliation between North and South. Films with Civil War themes were popular from the early days of Nickelodeon theaters. As movies became more elaborate, producers capitalized on the spectacle of the war. This is from The Drummer of the Eighth, a 1913 production. Conventions of Civil War fiction and drama were established before the movies began, and Griffith built upon this extensive tradition. This sequence is from Grandad, made in 1913 by Thomas Ince. Almost always, the war was portrayed as a tragedy that divided families, friends, and lovers. Although Civil War movies almost always showed action of battle, they also emphasized the miseries and suffering of war. Frequently, they ended in the death or mutilation of a loved one. And to add poignance, the victims were frequently young boys or forgotten old men. D.W. Griffith had a long personal association with the Civil War. His father, Roaring Jake Griffith, had fought as a colonel for the Confederacy. The young boy was raised on tales of the Great Rebellion. Griffith had this monument built over his father's grave to commemorate the colonel's military service. As an actor on the stage, the young Griffith appeared in Civil War plays, including this production of Winchester. It incorporated motion picture footage to show the climax of the young Southern girl's furious ride to save her Yankee lover. Griffith's 1911 film Swords and Hearts shows that he was greatly influenced by his early stage experience. Altogether, Griffith directed 11 Civil War one-reelers for the Biograph Company. It was mainly in Civil War films like The Battle that he sharpened his skill in handling large crowds and battle scenes. He directed these films at the rate of 1 or 2 per week. Griffith worked within the well-defined formulas of the Civil War genre, but his personal style consistently shone through. In this 1910 biograph called The House with Closed Shutters, Griffith cast Henry Walthall, hero of The Birth of a Nation, as an alcoholic anti-hero whose cowardice prompts his sister to disguise herself and take his fatal place in the front lines. A high point of Griffith's Civil War filmmaking is The Informer, released in 1912. Sweepingly romantic scenes are combined with imagery of betrayal and mutilation. But no Civil War play was the immediate source for the birth of a nation. Griffith turned instead to a scabrous, if highly successful, play about Reconstruction called The Klansman, written in 1906. The author, a professional Southerner and white supremacist from South Carolina, based it upon two of his own best-selling novels, the Reverend Thomas Dixon, Jr. His play celebrated the Ku Klux Klan as savior of the South from vengeful Northerners and vindictive blacks. In New York, it played at the Liberty Theater, where Griffith's movie later ran. Mrs. D.W. Griffith, who performed under the name Linda Arvidsson, was a leading actress in one of the many Klansman touring companies. Even those who attacked the birth of a nation for its racist ideology celebrated its spectacle and apparent authenticity. Here are Griffith outtakes and behind-the-scenes views never before shown in public. This open field where Griffith staged all his battle scenes is located in California's San Fernando Valley, a few miles north of Hollywood. While the battlefield was under construction, crews tested camera positions, choice of lenses, the ideal time of day for photography, and possible camera movements. For all the apparent lavishness of the battle scenes, Griffith operated under tight budget restrictions. For his long shots, he practiced ingenious economies. He carefully directed his explosives expert, a man named Fireworks Wilson, in the placement of smoke bombs and rockets to cover the bare parts of his field. Griffith's frugal use of camera setups is apparent here. In this outtake, notice the tree branch in the background as the Union Army defends its frontline trench. Now look closely at this shot of the Confederates defending their trench, and you will see the same tree branch in the background. To coordinate seemingly random activities, Griffith used assistant directors as team leaders to guide small units of men through specific maneuvers. Here we see one such team rehearsing its charge. On the far left is a unit leader dressed as a Confederate officer. As the camera pans right, we see corresponding teams of Union soldiers. Originally, Griffith intended his battle to represent the Battle of Petersburg, and he used graphic source materials as guides to recreate details. Gradually, however, he transformed Petersburg into a generic battle, emblematic of the war as a whole. The character of Austin Stoneman, portrayed here by Ralph Lewis, was based upon the Reconstruction leader Thaddeus Stevens. Griffith worked from contemporary sources to recreate Stevens' appearance from his black wig to his club foot. Here, Stoneman confers with Charles Sumner, another Reconstruction leader whose movie appearance was also drawn from contemporary graphic sources. Griffith was famous for the time he spent on rehearsals and screen tests. Here, Lillian Gish and George Siegman are talked through a master scene, while Griffith also tests costumes and makeup. Siegmund's jacket, still basted, splits in the middle of the take. Miss Gish faints too far from the camera, and Griffith has her faint in a closer shot. After all that has gone wrong, Griffith keeps the camera running and brings in Ralph Lewis to continue the test. Griffith sometimes planned in short editing units, but often he photographed uninterrupted dramatic scenes. This outtake begins before Miriam Cooper's entrance and will end with an in-camera fade. An actor himself, Griffith understood the different approaches that different performers require. He coached young Mae Marsh in considerable detail, taking her scenes gesture by gesture. By contrast, he gave Lillian Gish significant latitude in developing her character. Modern audiences sometimes wonder if Griffith fully understood the symbolic significance of his use of props. We think the repeated takes of this scene clearly show that he did. Here is Miss Gish in another costume test. If you look closely at the lower right, you can see Griffith just below the camera, his straw hat barely visible. For his Civil War scenes, Griffith relied heavily on lithographs and photographs found in commemorative war albums. He was particularly indebted to Harper's Pictorial History of the Great Rebellion, the great pictorial synthesis of the 1890s. He also used The Soldier in Our Civil War, a 2-volume book compiled by Paul F. Motelet and T. Campbell Copeland. Griffith modeled other scenes on drawings reproduced in Horace Porter's Campaigning with Grant. Lee's surrender at Appomattox Courthouse. Ford's Theater in a contemporary illustration and as recreated for the film in an outdoor set. However, when Griffith designed his reconstruction scenes, he took another tack. Although he claimed his post-war sequences were based on photographs, they are not. Few photographs of black reconstruction were ever taken. Griffith relied on drawings, especially political cartoons such as these. Griffith's feature was quietly previewed as The Klansman in Riverside, California on New Year's Day, 1915. Then, publicized by Horsemen in full Klan regalia, debuted at Clunes Auditorium in Los Angeles on February 8, 1915. In New York alone, where the film opened on March 3, 1915 as The Birth of a Nation, it played for 44 weeks. But from the outset, Griffith's film provoked and attracted considerable controversy. The National Association for the Advancement of Colored People and other civil rights groups mounted spirited protests. Here in Boston Common, they protest exhibition of The Birth of a Nation in Massachusetts. Dixon and Griffith were reviled by political cartoonists. The film was revived annually throughout the first half of the 1920s as a major roadshow attraction, the most popular silent movie ever made. While the Ku Klux Klan, dormant in the early decades of the 20th century, suddenly revived. Here, members parade up Washington's Pennsylvania Avenue in 1925. Although Thomas Dixon repudiated this new Klan, Griffith and his producers had no objection to exhibiting the film where the Klan was most active. In Ohio, where the censor board banned exhibition of the film, the Grand Dragon of the Realm of Ohio wrote, "I am sure we could have the censor board of Ohio grant us some special dispensation whereby we could show this picture under the auspices of our organization, so that when an effort is made on your part to have the censor board rescind its action, you will find public sentiment in your favor." The impact of the Klan regalia in The Birth of a Nation inspired its use in other films. A Klan-like organization was used to symbolize the early days of the Latter-day Saints in A Mormon Maid, a Lasky production of 1915. In this scene, from the Ebony Film Company's one-reel comedy produced in 1917 called Spying the Spy. Klan mumbo-jumbo is satirized. This is one of the few films actually produced by a black-owned company. The success of The Birth of a Nation proved the power of movies to influence public opinion and refashion history. Historian John Hope Franklin wrote, "As an eloquent statement of the position of most white Southerners using a new and increasingly influential medium of communication, and as an instrument that deliberately and successfully undertook to use propaganda as history, the influence of The Birth of a Nation on the current view of Reconstruction has been greater than any other single force." In 1915, the Supreme Court affirmed the right of state and local agencies to exercise prior restraint and censorship of motion pictures when it wrote that the exhibition of motion pictures is a business, pure and simple, not to be regarded as part of the press of the country or as organs of public opinion. They are mere representations of events, of ideas and sentiments published and known, vivid, useful, and entertaining, no doubt, but as we have said, capable of evil, having power for it the greater because of their attractiveness and manner of exhibition. As its investors anticipated, The Birth of a Nation was a runaway success that paved the way for the feature movie as the most widely seen mass entertainment in history up to that time. It is among the few early films which remains a familiar name in the national memory of our country.